when I wrote that book, I wanted to continue, but as we said in Masters, what's your point of departure, Mr. Carter? So my point of departure is that I'm not going to argue whether off-planet intelligence exists. My point of departure is that it already is. I'm not going to argue that again. If you don't agree with it, then read something else. But I wanted to show that these beings, not all, I cannot say all, I can say the people I met were evolved and that they had a deep spirituality that triggered mine. And so that the evolution of consciousness is what they're saying is that you too can evolve. But you got to get rid of this type of fear-based thinking, materialistic, um, arguing over what color someone's skin is, what what who they sleep with. That's nothing. That's immature thinking. Even the religious practices that keep people from one another.
Welcome to Follow with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Reverend Michael Carter. Let me tell you about the good Reverend and what he's been up to. So for 25 years, he worked as a professional actor before he moved to Asheville, North Carolina with his family, which isn't far from me. Michael is an ordained interfaith minister, and he received his BA degree in letters from the College of New Rochelle, where he graduated cum laude. He also received a master's from the Union Theological Seminary in New York City, and he's serving various Unitarian Universalist congregations in New York. And Michael was trained and has been recognized by President Clinton also for his efforts in anti-racism. Michael's written dozens of articles. He's spoken at dozens of conferences. He's well known on the circuit, and he speaks endlessly about the fascinating link between religion and UFOs. And that's what we're going to get into here. He's a longtime UFO experiencer. He lectures extensively on the topic, and he's appeared on the Sci-Fi Channel's Steven Spielberg's production of Abduction Diaries, The Real 4400. He's a frequent guest on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, which everyone probably knows who's watching this show. He's appeared on radio interviews with Academy Award-winning actress Shirley MacLaine. He's been on George Norrie and Jimmy Church's Coast to Coast AM, Beyond Belief, my fellow Gaia fans. He's got some awesome books that you can also look into. Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, A New World If You Can Take It, God, Extraterrestrials, and the Evolution of Human Consciousness, God Consciousness, a 30-day meditation manual to God-centered thinking. His latest work is The Metaphysics of Spiritual Healing and the Power of Affirmative Prayer. Those are all so far up my alley. Michael, it's so good to have you on. Thank you so much for beaming in, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
So, dude, let's get, in your, probably one of your most, if not the most popular of your works, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. You explore this. That's the one, right? It
was an Amazon, but way back in a long ago in a galaxy far, far away in 2014. Amazon put it as one of the top bestseller. But I gotta be candid. I stand on the shoulders of some other brothers and sisters who were writing about this. If they were experiencers, they didn't say it. Dr. Barry Downing, my friend and colleague, retired Presbyterian minister, UFOs in the Bible. He wrote it back in '68. Morris K. Jessup died under mysterious circumstances in the '50s. Wrote a book about the Bible and UFOs. Some female energy in the house. Reverend Virginia Brasington, right here in Asheville, North Carolina, wrote a book back in the '50s or '60s, UFOs in the Bible. So there's another clergy person. A woman named C.L. Turnage died much too young from Texas. She was a Zachariah Stitchin disciple, and she wrote a book called the Bible and extraterrestrial transmission. So that
Yeah.
freed me because I was in a closet for a very long time about my personal contact experiences. But when I saw um, these books, it was like water in the desert to a
Yeah.
drowning person because I said, "Oh my God, um, you know, I'm in some company here." And they would understand. Granted, not being an experiencer, but at least they paved the way. And
Yes.
I just kind of took it up to another level, and someone after me, or maybe on the scene soon, will take it up another level.
Tell me, what were some of the experiences that led you on this path to I mean, to research and discover the things that you
Oh
were
my
able
God.
to, and to, even to stand on the shoulders of all these amazing people, some of whom I know, some of whom I have scheduled to come on the show. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure there was events that led you to down this path. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about those?
Yes, brother. It's a great question. I was raised in the African American Baptist tradition. And so you did not even think or talk about this, which I never did. So it's not like
Hmm.
someone had their foot on my neck. I was into the dogma, and yeah, this was. I didn't even entertain it. Okay, I just started watching Star Trek 5 years ago. I'll be 66 this year. I know people would say, "What rock were you hiding under?" But I just never could entertain it. And I remember growing up in Baltimore. I was downtown Baltimore, and I remember someone telling me about UFOs or something, and they said, "You believe in them, right?" And I said, "No." And I remember the look on their face, like, what? And they said, "Why?" I said, "Well, it's not in the Bible." Now, what a difference 20 years makes, 25 years makes. My, Kierkegaard, one of my favorite philosophers, said that life is lived forward, but is only understood backwards. When I was a child, I remember very distinctly, I would see these, now I can use the word. I didn't know it. There were orbs in my room. They were always around me. And they look, they were circles and they were, and I would just be looking at them and I could see the density like in space here. And I saw auras and stuff around things and I thought everybody did. So I just never mentioned it. I used to wake up at night with blood on my pillow, and I'm thinking it's my ear bleeding. I just couldn't understand. But it wasn't my nose. Then I later found out that sometimes if you're implanted, in your nose or whatever, I don't know if that happened to me. But, starting to connect the dots looking backwards. Um, December 28th, 1989, my girlfriend at the time, and who later became my first wife, we went to Cancun and we took a trip on. We were there for a week to the Yucatan Peninsula to see the pyramids at Chichen Itza and Tulum.
Hmm.
We were living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and at that time, Brother Faust, I was moving away from my Baptist tradition. I started reading metaphysics and existential philosophy, and the occult. It's a weird word, isn't it? But it seemed
Yeah.
like woo, but I was and studying, tarot cards and all that. So I was already on a path. Um, and we went, and I was like, how did these people know?
Mm.
Where were they getting their information? Is basically, about eclipses and equinoxes. I mean, So I came home, and we got to JFK, and my girlfriend said, "I'm going home. I'm tired." I had been invited to a party down in Hell's Kitchen. I wanted to show off my tan. My hair was like golden. I was wanted to glow. I was coming back from 85 degrees, brother.
Yeah.
New York, they were freezing. So I kind of wanted to glow a little bit. So I
Yeah.
went. I caught the subway down to Times Square and walked west. Um, and I hung out. Ooh, ah, boy, you look good, and no beverages, no adult beverages. Maybe tons of deviled eggs. I love them. I love these things so much. So leave. Love y'all. Happy New Year. Go home. And even to this day, I mean, the story never. I don't change my story. I don't know whether someone was in the room or I sensed it, or I had to go to the bathroom. But when I got up, I sleep on my stomach. And when I got up and there was a being at the edge of my bed who looked like that. Now, he didn't have, I'm saying he, it could have been a she,
Right.
this individual. He didn't have this. Someone made this for me. He's got the, like a Buddha robe on.
Yeah.
But he had a jumpsuit. It was it was like here and all the way tight.
Mm.
And it looked like Reynolds wrap. It looked like Reynolds wrap. And
Yeah.
he was real small and skinny. His head was big. And listen, I've been in some situations. I was scared to death.
Mm.
I had a cop put a gun up to my head once, and
Yeah.
I was more afraid then seeing this
Wow.
brother
Yeah.
than I was then. And so, you know, and he had a blue light
Mm-hmm.
around him, and around that light was this white light. Now, you live in New York. We're talking the Excelsior
Yeah.
Hotel across the street from the place. Wasn't like Benny and Barney Hill in this little rural area. This was
No.
in Manhattan, brother. And
Yeah.
and so I'm in the Excelsior Hotel between Columbus and the Park, and on the 15th floor. And I'm not macho, and I'm not. I pulled the covers up over my head, and I got you feel this. I remember that, and I remember Sandy wouldn't wake up. I
Uh-huh.
was, like, what? I'm, help me here.
Yeah.
Um, and the backstory is that when this book came out, I sent her, and I talk about it in the book. And when I sent it to her, she said to me, "I remember that night." She said, "I've
Mm.
never seen you so frightened." And she said, "I remember these kind of figures in the room, but in my head, there was a voice. It just kept saying, 'Go to sleep, go to sleep.'"
Right.
I said, "Thanks a lot." But my
Yeah.
point being, and I heard this whoosh, like I was outside. It felt
Yeah.
like I said it changed. It was freezing, and I pulled the cover down,
Mm.
and no one was there. She
Wow.
woke up. I told her about it. Now she's a deeply caring, spiritual woman, so she didn't
Mm-hmm.
say, "What are you, some kind of nut?"
Right.
Yeah. So I told her about it. I told some friends of mine about it, and every full and new moon, they came. I mean, I've seen other races, but they came. They would
Mm.
paralyze me, and I would feel electricity going through me, like they were sending stuff. Sometimes one time, and they wouldn't talk. Uh,
Mm.
the reptilian person talked, but his mouth didn't move. You just heard it in your head.
Right. It was
But
telepathic. Yeah.
yeah. So they showed me a past life, and they showed me a future event that actually did happen. I told an astrologer friend about it, and she told me to go down to Alphabet City at the time, down past St. Mark's, just keep and
Mm-hmm.
she said there's going to be a mural on a wall, and she said, look at what's on the wall, and if that's who visited you, let me know. And they were great people. Now, he wasn't gray. He was kind of like a chalk color,
Mm.
but he had the phenotype of.
Right. But
And
he looked like
so,
what you learned to be a typical gray.
yes,
Yeah.
little short brother. And so, you know, things started happening. Like, um, all of a sudden, I wanted to start healing.
Mm.
I started studying energy healing and Reiki. I got by on less sleep. I
Mm.
didn't need a lot of sleep. My skin and hair. I got my hair in a French braid now because I have long locks.
Yeah.
Um, but my hair grew fat, skin and nails, and 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 I felt more intelligent.
Mm.
That's the best way I can explain it.
Wow. That's an
But the
activation and a half.
but the most important thing that happened to me, I just felt like my heart had opened.
Wow.
I was now. I want to be clear. It wasn't like a magic wand. I was going to therapy for some family of
Yeah.
origin stuff. I was working on I meditating.
You were
Um,
working, right? But by the time
yeah, I
that
was working
happened,
on
you were
stuff.
working, right?
But I was also living a fast life, brother. I was an actor in New York. I was
Yeah.
hanging out at
Oh, I
parties.
know
I
how it
was
is. Yeah.
sexting and drugging, and I was a mess.
Yeah.
And but I felt more. I say love. I just I was more willing to say, more willing to be authentic. I could say I love you more. I
Yeah.
could say I'm afraid. I had more compassion
Mm-hmm.
for myself and other people. Now I was working on that.
Yes.
So, I just want to the audience out there, you got to work on those things. But when
Yeah.
they came, they expedited it.
The,
They expedited it.
they
And
see the
so,
intention, you know.
yes. And so
Yeah.
then I saw the reptilian. I'm not going to get up and go get him, but I got to, every being that I've met, I have an artist friend, a sculptor in Nevada, and she
Oh, that's
makes
cool.
these things. So, I had a healing, which I sent you from this Nordic guy. He looked like he was from Sweden or something.
Yeah.
The reptilians came. I met a praying mantis person in 2019. I met Edgar Casey talks about the Arcturian. When I say met,
Oh,
they
yeah,
just showed up
Arcturian,
in
of
my room.
course.
These are
Yeah.
in my room, and they come in my and they touch you and they say, "Don't be afraid." And that's easy for them to say. Just chill.
Everybody
I know
says
that's
that,
what
man.
you mean.
You know, it
Just
was like
walk.
I wouldn't be afraid. I'm ready. And then, people get
Oh,
in the
brother,
room and
I could
they're
start
like,
whimpering because
yeah,
they just come through your wall. And this is 20, 25 years ago, but like my wife just came back today. She was away. Now my daughter was here, but my wife was away for the weekend at a wedding, and she's going to be away next weekend. And the puppy's gone. Not the puppy; it's a grown dog.
yeah,
But it's hard for me. I have a rough time at night when I'm home by myself,
mm,
because of them, and I consider my experiences positive.
yeah,
But it's the bizarreness of it, but just the fact that I could be home and I could be watching TV or I go to sleep, and I could turn over and bam,
yeah,
the mother's there, and they're real because they touch you. I mean,
yeah,
and it's just like a post traumatic thing, and I'm cool, but I late at night if
yeah,
I'm home alone, it's just
yeah. It's
something
something
I got
that
to
you're
deal with.
aware of,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I sleep
that's
with the lights
amazing.
on till the last minute, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what's amazing is even through the fear and some of the trauma you've experienced from these visitations that you have not allowed it to I mean, like, trauma can manifest itself in a lot of ways for people, and and some people were the trauma runs away with them, the fear gets the better of them, right? um and they come out of it, and they go into their story, and I'm not taking anything away from people who have had experiences
That
that
weren't
are
great. Yeah,
that weren't great and that were
yeah,
abduction,
and I know
that
people
fall
who
into that
have.
category, because many of them are absolutely sincere,
Yeah,
and you can tell the terror when they describe this, and they're very much, what's amazing to me sometimes is you see people who the story starts off like that, but then and as they evolve, it evolves, and they realize that all these things started to happen and come online for them afterwards, and they ended up seeking a life very much the way you were activated. They found themselves to be, called to healing and to these other arts. Some people went from like a corporate job to,
yeah, yeah.
they they,
Working on
they were
Wall
just,
Street now, they're doing massage up,
yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's
I love those
amazing the
stories. I love.
consistencies,
Well,
it's and you
yeah,
can't take that away, because there's look, we live in a material world, and people are always saying, show me empirical data, show me, and I'll say, okay, let's look at the pattern, because the patterns and experiences of people don't lie, and some of them are very consistent, and that's what is everybody making it up? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that would be crazy. Why
yeah,
would anyone do that? You're not
yes.
getting positive reinforcement for these
No,
kinds of
no.
stories.
I almost lost my job
I'm sure.
from talking about as a minister. Religion. You don't be talk. You can't be talking about this. Or if you do talk about it, then they got to be demons, or
Yeah,
it's got to be the
or
devil.
fallen angels, right? Everything's
Yes,
got to be this or that, black and
yes,
white.
yes, yes. No, I agree. Listen, but I also tell people this too, because of quantum theory and quantum physics. This old Newtonian
Mm-hmm.
way they call that's gone. So you can't find metrics in this you can't use 21st century science to deal
No,
with 60th century science. And
that's right.
so that old scientific thing is, the old paradigm was, you show me and I'll believe. That doesn't work anymore.
Nope.
The new quantum physics says, believe and I'll show you.
That's right.
You know,
And
so
for the people who have
that's the
adopted
way it
that,
works.
the world is their oyster. They
Yeah.
see proof of it in everywhere they go and in everything they do. And the people who are stuck in the old paradigm continue to be frustrated by the people who are in the new because
Yeah.
they demand the old paradigm. And of course, that's what shows up for them because we are these infinitely creative beings. And
Yeah.
that's, you
Yeah.
know, the part of us that is connected to source is always giving us what we believe and, and
Yes.
so that's the pattern that we're kind of stuck in right
Yeah.
now. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
What you believe. Now, um, you know, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. That's the new paradigm. And that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that things don't happen to you. That doesn't
Right.
mean that loved ones die or people don't get cancer or you get hit by. That doesn't mean that.
No.
But what it means is how I respond to it is my choice. If I'm aware enough, if I'm conscious enough, not reacting, you start responding to life as opposed to
Hmm.
reacting to life. And we see it now around us. The old paradigm is still going to talk about power and sex
Hmm.
and money. And that's like, I was in 12 steps many years ago for codependency.
Hmm.
And 12-step program, you just, how's that working for you? It's like,
Yep.
it's
I've
like
been there.
progress, not perfection. Yeah. And so, that's 12 steps. Our best thinking got us here. Look where we are today. And
Yeah.
our best thinking got us here. So if Einstein is saying, and other wise people, you and other people say, you can't you can't solve a problem from the
The
same
same
consciousness that
consciousness
began
that,
it in the
yeah.
first place. So what we're doing is insane
Yeah.
because we're getting money for it. You're getting rich and powerful and whatever, but they don't see in the long run that that's going to undo us. And we keep
Hmm.
doing the same thing over and over. And instead of looking at ourselves, I'm talking about collectively,
Right.
we'll blame it on a God. Why does God do this or what? No, it's about us. And
Hmm.
and so, but the world is changing. That doesn't mean that we won't blow ourselves up. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that a big rock won't hit us. It doesn't mean that climate change won't do us in.
Right.
Doesn't mean that. But it does mean that we have a choice of where we want to go.
Yeah.
And it's up. No benevolent extraterrestrials. I know some people argue, well, they're going to come and save us before we blow. I wouldn't count on that. If they do, it's an added surprise. But you got to change the
Yeah.
way
That
you look at stuff, change the way you think. And
and
so we
change the
have
way
a,
we imagine the future.
yes,
And
yeah,
that's the biggest challenge I think right now, even as more people awaken to the truth, because the truth of what has gone on is ugly. It is not the best side of human nature, but I don't think that it is the natural. I don't think it is human nature. I'm like I agree with Greg Braden. He's like he says we're all angels. We were never meant to see this kind of trauma. We've been exposed deliberately in a way that will create a society governed by fear. That's what these events and these wars are about. It's there is forces at work, and we were never meant to see this kind of atrocity. With the terrorist attacks and the wars and the shooting, all these things they're thrust in our faces, and that unfortunately is for an agenda. And so the challenge I think for us is to not get caught up in that distraction, because that's what it is. That's a look over here so
hmm
you don't see what's happening here.
hmm
Meanwhile, there's a lot of corralling going on,
hmm
stripping away of the freedoms that we've enjoyed. And that's true, and that's all happening. And I know for me, I'm trying to challenge myself to stay with the future that I want, as opposed to what they want you to believe, this inevitability, of these powerful
Well,
corporate entities.
that's quantum physics
Yeah,
because what you focus on, you create.
that's right.
And if you're going to focus on certain people in the media, certain politicians,
Mm-hmm.
what they do, you create more of it. You said it exactly. I need to envision the world that I want. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that I'm got my head in the sand and that I'm an ostrich, but physics tells us, this is science, that what I focus on, I create. So
Yes.
I can, that means I'm powerful. That means I'm a co-creator. That means I'm God-like, if you want to use
Responsible.
that.
That's right.
Yeah. And so that's what you want to focus on, because it's the okey doke. It's the shell game. When I see stuff sensationalized or whatever, I look at it, it titillates me a bit, but I go,
Mm-hmm.
well, what? Maybe I should be focusing more on this.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what else is happening, because this is it. And it works. It's Machiavellian. It's how you divide and conquer
That's
since
right.
human beings have been on the planet. But a new consciousness changes that. So I'm always looking, now, wait a minute, you got me looking over here. This
Yeah.
stuff is
Why?
really
Why?
not that important. I don't care who you're sleeping with. I don't care
Right.
about the race stuff there, because I know. But what's going on over here?
Mm-hmm. And
That's
it,
I'm
that,
with you. I'm with
yeah.
you.
So in your follow-up book, A New World, If You Can Take It, you kind
Oh,
of you
my favorite.
skip the kind of do aliens exist question, right? And
Yeah.
you jump right into a conversation in which you explore what their existence means for humanity and for religion and for some of these
Yep. Yeah.
things
Right.
that are so prevalent in our in society today, right? How it changes the purpose of our lives. And what I want to know is, when did you decide to kind of lead this spiritual transformation, this modern day charge,
Mhm.
and what can people learn from it?
Okay. Thank you. These are excellent. Um, when I wrote that book, I wanted to continue, but as we said in Masters, what's your point of departure, Mr. Carter? So my point of departure is that I'm not going to argue whether off-planet intelligence exists. My point of departure is that it already is. I'm not going to argue that again. If you don't agree with it, then read something else. But I wanted to show that these beings, not all, I cannot say all, I can say the people I met, were evolved, and that they had a deep spirituality that triggered mine. And so that the evolution of consciousness is, what they're saying is that you too can evolve. But you got to get rid of this type of fear-based thinking, materialistic, um, arguing over what color someone's skin is, what what who they sleep with. That's nothing. You gotta. That's immature thinking. Even the
Mm-hmm.
religious practices that keep people from one another. And I figured I could use my voice as a minister. I'm not someone, I didn't go and get it in the mail. I went to one of the top seminaries in the country. I
Mm-hmm.
graduated cum laude. I said, how can I use that? And so when I wrote this book, and Whitley gave the quote that he gave, um, I'm saying that in order for us to evolve and to learn to love,
Mm-hmm.
and I can explain what that means. It's not because it's the word love is just tossed around; it loses its meaning. That and to realize that what I do to me, I do to you,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's this connection, and that we've always been taught that from other saints and avatars. They
Yes.
may say it in different ways, but there's an interconnected way. What I do to this planet, I do to myself, and the big sin, if you will, and I'm using that word. I
Yeah, I
don't
know.
use it a lot, but I'm using it, missing the mark.
Right.
Uh, and the big sin, if you want to use that word, we can use another word, is that I believe that I'm separate from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I believe I'm separate from you, or people who look like you, or then that is the big mistake,
Yes.
because this illusion of separateness is what's going to destroy us. And that's what I'm fighting against. When I came out, as I'm a man of color this lifetime, in my belief system, I chose that. This is to learn my lessons. But I saw what was happening, that if you were blonde, blue eyed, if you were one of the Nordic people,
Mm-hmm.
those are the good ET.
Right.
The reptilians, the darker brothers and sisters, the grays or whatever. Oh, and it's unconscious, at least for the most part.
Right.
And they look more human. No, they look more like the dominant culture. So it was like an
Right.
intergalactic kind of racism that we don't need that. We do that. And so if you had some gray brothers and sisters come into your house, they it's very unpleasant. They do anal probes. They take semen and that's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come out and you start saying the grays are bad, because we do that with each other.
We do. We
The
absolutely do.
Jewish people are this,
My God, it's like I'm
the
like,
black
what? Who
people
said
are
that?
this, all because of a group, of some
Yeah.
people in that group. So that's when I came out and I said two things to myself. One, and you and I were in show business. We were in the business of creating illusions. Now I'm in the business of dispelling
Mm-hmm.
illusions. And I'm also in the business of, I want the races to come together. How can
Yes,
we facilitate that? But not only human race, but even the galactic races. So I'm
that's
doing
right.
diversity work. I've just put it on
Yeah.
steroids,
Yeah.
you know?
It's you've transcended uh, this planet
Yeah,
in
that
many
kind of
ways.
paradigm.
Yeah.
If I walk down the street here and someone calls me, I live in the South, and someone calls me the N word, I'm not going to say all people who look like that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And we do that with each other, but we were also doing it with these all star people.
Yeah.
All the
Absolutely.
grays are bad. All the reptilians are bad. But the blonde, blue-eyed, the Nordic,
Of course,
they look so human.
they're so good, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
and one of them healed my blood clot. So I show you some love. I give
yeah.
you some props. I will never forget that. But I'm not going to say that all of you are one
No,
because I
you
don't know
can't
that.
because you got to remember this is a universe that has been given the most tremendous honor and gift of free will, right?
Yes,
And so
thank you.
every individual is sentient. I don't care if they're from
Yeah,
Arcturus or Syria, many of the
my God, the
Syrian
trees
planets.
are sentient. The
You,
dolphins, the
you
whales,
know, so
everybody's got intelligence.
we see what I see, what I believe I see, and I have a friend who is this amazing, loving human who has a very strong connection. He channels a reptile an advanced reptilian, this
Yeah,
beautiful creature named his
yeah,
name is Treb, and so excited to talk to humans and loves humans, and reptilians, they get such a bad name,
yeah.
and it's in part because I'm sure there are some reptilians who have a nefarious agenda that involves them collecting more power. Okay,
And
we
it's
do
also
see that happening
old,
on Earth.
the
It's
Adam
not
and
like it's a
Eve thing
foreign concept.
it's also the serpent and all that
Yeah,
archetypal stuff. It's a mess.
it is a mess.
But go on,
But to
brother. I'm sorry.
say
I didn't
that
mean,
they're all one thing is
oh,
it's a mistake. It's like you said, if there is
it's
such a thing
so
as sin, it's a
unevolved.
sin.
It's so unevolved. Yeah, and I don't. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister. We don't talk a lot about sin because that's a theology that we may not really kind
Yeah,
of
I don't blame
resonate
you.
with. But if I'm going to use sin, then I'm going to say the sin is that I believe I'm separate from
Yes.
everything around me. That's not a healthy way to think because then we have the world that we have now.
That's right. And look at the condition that everything is in.
Oh,
And it is because that we have been brought
it's,
to believe something
it's
that is
disgraceful.
patently false, that we are
Yeah,
separate from ourselves and the planet.
and from the
And the
planet.
thing that keeps us even as young as a species as we are, as far as we have evolved, which in many ways is an amazing feat, and in many ways we have been stunted in our maturity because of these false notions we've been taught, and for the reasons we've been taught them. But in a universe filled with beings that have this free will, you cannot force them to do. You have to convince them to do it themselves, right? And
Hmm.
so we're in a constant struggle for our beliefs, because it's very much common sense to me. And when I tune in and I'm imagining or be downloading information from my celestial family, I see the harmony that comes
Mhm.
from living with the belief system, and that you know that there is no separation
Yeah.
between you and your family, your the rest of your species. Because why would you ever let someone go hungry when you know that that's you? You know what I'm saying? There would never be a need to
Oh
steal,
my God.
to kill, because you would freely give what this person needs because they
Me.
need it, because that's you. You know what I'm saying? And it's just becomes so obvious to me how we went astray, and how
Oh,
easy it would be to fix if we get our belief systems together.
right. I agree. And I think that's happening. We were having our little chat prior to the show.
Hmm.
The change in consciousness is happening. Um, it doesn't mean that we still won't destroy ourselves and or something,
Yeah,
with our
unfortunately, yeah.
environment. Doesn't mean that that's not going to happen, but it means that we have a choice. And free will, to me, simply means this: you are free to do whatever you want to do,
Hmm.
but you are not free from the consequences of your action.
That's right. That's very
And
true.
yeah, and you can do what you want. You can carry on and act a fool, but just know it will come back.
Yeah,
And it may come back this lifetime. But you, and so
that's right. You can avoid reality for so long, but you cannot avoid the consequences
you
of reality
cannot. That's
because
free
you are
will. That's
living here,
free will.
you know?
And so to learn to love, to learn compassion, to learn to choose love over fear. We get the choice every day.
Yeah,
To
we sure do.
learn that, just to look at nature, to learn that I don't have to argue with you about if you believe in God or I don't or
That's
what have
right.
you. I know what you believe by how you treat me. I know folks that they're in Bible study every Wednesday night. They're in the temple or shul on Friday. They're in the mosque. And I got to tell you, on Sundays, they will treat you like you are something underneath their shoe.
Yeah,
And they're doing all the
something ain't
right
right.
things. I'm in shul. I'm in the temple. I'm at church, but I'm studying.
Then they get in
And
traffic
if
and they're
you
cursing the whole way
and if
home.
you don't believe like I believe, it's going to be a problem.
Right.
And when you're evolved, you kind of go past that. And and
Yeah.
and I want to be clear here. At one time, I was like that. I mean, in this lifetime, and probably in other lifetimes too. It's taken me all these years to get it. And I don't mean it's rabid about, but I believe that I had a truth and no one else did.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There are other religions, yeah, but we know Christianity's that's the real one. I mean, I might as well have done that. And
Yeah.
but that's not true. There are many ways. If you believe in a God, there are many ways to God. If you don't believe in God, there are many ways to connect with the all that is.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me and people, most of the people that I know who've had these experiences, they kind of get that. Not all, and it makes you struggle. I was struggling
Yeah.
because it's like you're in a trapeze and you let go of the trapeze and you're waiting for the other one to come because it will make you rethink. Look, who was it? Was it Plato or the unexamined life? Was it Socrates? The unexamined life is not worth living. Malcolm
Right.
X said the unexamined faith is not worth having. What
Mm.
I believed at 14, Paul talks about it. When I was a man, when I was a child, I thought as a child. But if you're not growing and evolving,
Yeah.
I don't believe the same thing I believe. I'm 66 this year. I don't believe the same thing I believe I'm 40 because I'm
Yeah.
growing and learning. And the things that I do believe, there's some truths that were true 5,000 years ago, and they'll be
Yeah.
true 5,000 years from now. But life is about growing and evolving and peeling that onion and
Hmm.
becoming more real and more authentic. And then I can come to you as my authentic self, not
Yeah.
with a bunch of beliefs that I read or someone taught me.
Or that
I
I
can,
don't even know that I have,
right,
that were
right, that this is what I've
installed,
come to in my life.
I think about so many people in my life, who were once I was very close to, friends from school and whatnot. And some people are very content just to be. you know, and you know, I got one friend, and he's the happiest dude you'll meet. I love him. You know, he's great, but he's just like, I'm just a simple man. You know, I'll try to bring up some of these things, and he's not interested, and I respect that because he's still living with integrity and authenticity. He, you know what I mean? He just does. I'm pretty clear. He didn't come here for that, you know.
Yeah.
But then there are other people who are, they're just so busy trying to get ahead. You know what I mean? That things like family and love, they're very. I mean, everything is second to this kind of corporate mindset that has permeated America, and I feel bad for those people. And it's hard for me to get along with those people more so obviously than ever. But I remind myself that everybody is here to evolve, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on the choices they make in their life, that's going to depend on how far they get with this incarnation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to respect people and let them do what they've come to do, because
I
one
agree.
way or the other they're going to get around to it. You know,
Yeah.
you get as many chances as you need,
Yes.
and that, you know, that's also reassuring in many ways.
It is. You know, and that's the thing. You know, you find something and you want to share it. But that's why I love the Eastern philosophies and Eastern religions, because there's the non-attachment.
Mm.
And the non-attachment doesn't mean you don't care. It just means that you can't let that situation control you. And I may bring up something to someone maybe two, three times, and if they're not there, that's
Mm.
okay. Because there was a time that I'm sure I wasn't there. May have been
Yeah.
last year, may have been this, but you got to let people live their lives. You know, I draw the line if it's going to be physical violence or something like that. No,
Right.
but you have free will. And, you know, if it's about chasing money and sex and all that, I know what that's like. It's
Yeah.
fun. But that's not the be all end all. But if that's where you are on your state of evolution, then I respect that, because I know
Right.
what that's like, because I was like that. And so they teach us acceptance,
Yes.
not
And
tolerance, but
acceptance, that's
acceptance.
right, which is a form of surrender.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching my kids this. They're 9 and 11, and it's, you know, it's helping. I'll tell you what, it's helping, you know, and understanding that there's a time to dig your heels in and speak up, but also there are certain things when it's, and you got to tune in to your hearts and to know the difference,
Mm-hmm.
to accept, and your life will become a lot easier, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Accept that this is just the way things are right now, and that will, you'll gain character, you'll gain in resilience from that kind of acceptance.
Yeah, yeah. It's you know, the Christians call it the peace that passes all understanding. You
Mm.
know, when you can stay serene in the sense of the world is turning the way it should. In the West, we say, no, 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 you got to change it. You got to do something. And there's the old Zen saying, don't just do something, stand there. You go with the flow of things. And I have had the greatest peace of my life the last 5 years or so, because I don't um, I don't get upset about things I don't understand. I don't try to control things I can't.
Mm.
To some people, that looks like
Like
giving in,
bypassing, right? Like
but
spiritual
it's not.
bypassing.
It's
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not.
No, it's not. There are things that are beyond my control. If I had my way, the war in Ukraine would be over. But Putin
Hmm.
doesn't call Reverend Carter. Biden doesn't call Reverend. Well, Reverend, what do you think? You know, so I'm informed enough or misinformed enough to speak intelligently about it and state my case why. And we're not getting into a political discussion. I'm just using that as an
Right.
example. We can use anything else. But I can't control that. But I can control how I react to certain things, how I respond, just trying to get along with my neighbors, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I have peace because and the second thing that I found very important, I don't have to be right.
Right.
When you can give up being right, at least try.
Right.
Life, it's a whole new ball game, because you
Yes.
don't have anything to prove. You know what I mean? Michael, I disagreed with your sermon today. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe next Sunday I may have something you can agree with. I'm
Right.
not going to argue with you,
Right. You don't
you
need to
know. And it's just like
validate or
I have
invalidate someone
peace.
else's.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
have to be right. And a lot of people don't like that because they want to argue. And a
That's
lot
right.
of people, their whole life is about being, I'm right. But I just say, how's that working for you?
Right.
But I don't have to be right.
That's
And my
it's a
life,
big
oh, it's
thing
freedom.
to come
It's
to
freedom.
understand. Yes.
Freedom.
And it takes a while. You know, there's a lot of ego taming involved in that. You know, speaking of Eastern philosophy, you know, I heard you once on Japanese TV discussing UFOs in the Bible, and I mean, you know, there's some suppression that goes on this topic, I think,
Hmm.
and so we know so little about kind of widespread UFO culture across the world because it was, you know, it's been propagandized as crazy to talk about,
Yeah.
and so the
Yeah.
media never really allowed people many voices. But I'm wondering how receptive were were they in Japan to your wisdom, and did their beliefs differ from the American viewpoint? Like, how was it accepted?
At that time, because that was several years ago, that interview,
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Brooklyn then. They sought me out. So they knew there was a market for it. They came and shot in our little shotgun house in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And I never found out from them, but they knew there was an audience for it.
I
That's
see.
why they asked me if I would do it. Now, there are many, to your point, there are many countries that are much more open than we are about it. Japan is one of them.
Yes.
Obviously in South America, I would venture to say, to a degree, it's even in parts of Britain, Germany, Europe is a little more open to it.
Russia seems
Russia,
very
Russia,
much
very
more.
open. Well,
Yeah.
they were open to psychic phenomenon way back in
Yes.
the day. So, um, I get the interconnectedness of because they're NATO allies and whatever. We have to agree. We have to put on a united
Yeah.
front. Um, but they were much more open to it. United States is one of those countries in a lot of ways. I know people who've never left this country and said it's the greatest country in the world. And I said, well, have you been
Yeah.
anywhere else? No. Um, but, civilized nations have health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Civilized nations will give you that 4-day work week. Civilized nations will
They'll
give you
educate
the
their
free
young
education.
into
Yeah,
adulthood
yeah,
without trying to put them in a debt for the rest of their
right.
lives.
Civilized
This is
nations
civilized.
don't have their troops in all these countries and what have you, and have to police the whole world. So, having said that, um, there are other countries who are ahead of us, not just in
Yeah.
their attitudes about off-world intelligences and being alone, but just on more celestial. I mean, yeah, more earthly stuff about
Yeah.
how do we treat each other. What is fair? What is a minimum wage? What is fair? And so um, that hype, there's no place else like us. Well, maybe that's a good thing, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of other countries who are more aware uh, than we are about what's going on as far as extraterrestrial life, as well as policies um,
Yeah.
and procedures, if you will, that are more humane to their
These two
populations
things
as
go
a whole.
together. I mean,
Yeah.
because they require, I don't want to say require, but they certainly involve an expanded consciousness in respect to
Hmm.
what it means to be human. And
Hmm.
that expansion comes with understanding that there is a greater cosmos, that we are the product
Yes.
of many advanced, you know, civilizations, even if right now most of us are clueless about those origins and our
Hmm.
evolution. You know, I had a guest on a few weeks ago, and he made a brilliant remark. He said, you know, we're so busy pointing up in the sky and saying, what are they? Where are they from? That that we've forgotten we haven't answered that question for ourselves yet. How can we answer? How can we expect the answers when we don't even know where we're from? Well, many of us don't, you know. Uh, and I'm looking forward to the day, and I think it's going to happen in our lives. You know, that what's been hidden from the public, you know, the contact that's been made, the technology that's been suppressed, it's going to become very obvious why the contact has been hidden because of the technology, because the
Mm-hmm.
monopolies at work and in power would have never come to be. If the
Mm-hmm.
technology with which ET came here was made public, it would have taken people not very long at all to figure out that, hey, wait a minute, they don't need gasoline. They don't need fossil fuels.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need gas and coal. They don't even need big pharma,
Exactly.
which is an extension of the petro.
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
see the suppression and the origin, that people think that the suppression is about ET and quote aliens, which I hate that word, but it's not.
Me
It's
too.
about
It's
money.
not.
It's about greed. It's the same old
Yeah.
story in this country. All
It's the
all
same old story.
the terrible shit comes from those things: power, greed.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah,
Yeah, and the thing is that I believe that we're focused, collectively speaking, we're focused on the wrong thing. It's not about lights in the sky. It's about the transformation of your heart. It's about
yes,
transforming your spirituality. It reminds me of the story in the Bible when Nicodemus comes to Jesus by night because he doesn't want people to see him with Jesus, and
mm,
they talk, and Jesus, they're talking about what it means to be born again, and Nicodemus says, well, what does that mean? Do you have to go back into your mother's womb? And Jesus says, Nicodemus, if I speak to you of earthly things and you don't understand, how will you understand when I speak to you of heavenly things?
yeah,
And that's how I feel here.
yeah,
If you can't get the love ethic, if you can't get the compassion just with your fellow human beings,
right,
people who are made, how when we go up a notch, how are you going to get that?
yeah,
You can't even get this.
right. And
Yes,
and so same people who
yes.
are clamoring for, when is there going to be mass contact, and some of us are like, it's been happening, it's been going on. All you have to do is go within,
Yeah.
and when you go with
Yeah.
you
Yes.
go within, you can make contact. People are doing it all around the world. There's even
Hmm.
specific protocols and meditations you can do to make contact, but you first have to
No
open your
question.
heart and your beliefs,
And
because
you
you're
got
not
to
going to be
work on
sitting there.
yourself.
Yeah, that's
You got to
right. You
work on
got
yourself.
got to go to work
And no, but that's too hard to do. That takes a lot of hard work to
and
look at
courage. Yeah.
yourself, flaws and all, and to grow. Yeah. And so it's always everything is outside. And I will say this, and I've said this on I try to make a point of it, either when I'm speaking live or in podcast or you don't need someone from another galaxy, dimension, or planet to come down here to tell you this.
Right.
This is what all saints and avatars have been trying to tell you about this oneness,
Hmm.
about who we are. And so, you don't need a near death experience or an out of body experience or an extraterrestrial. You don't need that. If that happens, fine.
Yeah.
But that's the sensational. You got to be able to do the work. And right now, to quote James Baldwin, in another context, but we're not willing to pay the price of the ticket.
That's
We're not
right.
willing to pay it.
It's
And
true.
so the price of the ticket is going within. And it's not sexy. Um,
Yeah.
but you just keep on
But
pushing and
that's the
trying to get the
look. I always say those people who don't do that, they're missing out. I mean, look, yeah, you got to you got to dig, and a lot of times that pile that you got to dig into has been left to build, and it's been unattended, and it doesn't smell very good, it doesn't look very good, and there's no reason why anyone would want to go near it, including you. But underneath that is so much joy and love
Mhm,
and understanding and compassion and awareness that can be expanded beyond what you thought possible, an awareness
mhm,
that taps
mhm,
into, to use a cliche expression, the third eye, and this heart
mhm,
center, which is also ultra receptive, far more receptive than our brains, that we think is like the dominant
mhm.
reception in our lives. Everything started happening for me because I went on a quest to open my heart, because it was closed off from trauma, from abuse. And if I
Mhm.
hadn't been on that
Yeah.
quest, I thought I was doing it to become a better actor, Michael. But now I know how silly that is. I was doing it to become a better human being. but my quest
Yeah.
was literally to find a way to open my heart, because in my work I was running into all these problems. Now, isn't that amazing that I started to
Yeah.
learn to meditate? I was in therapy, but then I was like, okay, this is only going to help me so much. I got to recondition my body to not be this armored up, this closed off,
Yes.
armored up
Yes.
thing that it was, because I had a physiological
Mhm.
hang up, that came from my childhood. And I
Mhm.
had to get over that if I was going to be a compassionate, loving human being with the world and
Yes.
myself, because I wasn't being very nice to myself at the time. And God, that put me in touch with so much, man. And once it started opening,
Mhm.
like literally everything changed about what I can
Mhm.
perceive, the truth I can discern, how much love I can show, and the kind of human being I can be for my children. Thank God. Like, I thank God every day
Yes.
that I went
Yes.
on that
Yes.
quest.
Yes.
And
I'm with you, brother. I am with
yeah,
you. And
and
it's the gift that keeps on giving.
it is. You're absolutely right. And look, the job is never done. We're here to heal. I'm not
Yeah.
saying in any way, believe me, that I've made it, but I've come to a place that I love
No,
myself,
no, it doesn't come
and
off
that's the
that
most
way. No, you're
important
not coming
thing.
off that way at all.
Right.
It is. It is. And I will tell you something though along those lines. When Marianne was in town, when she was first starting out, I used to go to the Course in Miracles, and I
Mm-hmm.
used to go to her lectures, and now I incorporate it as much as I can,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not a Course in Miracle person exclusively. And then
Yeah.
there's a book out called The Course of Love, and I read that, and it's like an addendum, but it's more heart chakra oriented. It's a different
Mm-hmm.
channel, and there's some things in the book that really, really, it's more heart chakra
Yeah.
oriented, but it made me declare my gifts in a positive way, to be unapologetic. And by that I mean, they were saying that there's some, after a while on your spiritual path, you get to a point where you know what you know. And
Yeah.
it's okay to say that. Um, I had, because I didn't want to come off cocky or,
Yeah.
like I was this great, and I'm not. But because I would, what I would do, I would spend $3,000-4,000 a year on books. I love books, and I'm
Yeah.
buying all these spiritual books, and I'm realizing that it's the same thing said, but it's only in a different
Yeah.
way. So the
Yeah.
new spiritual book came out. This new book came out. Marianne wrote this book. Whoever wrote, and I'm spending money. It's hitting me in the pocketbook now.
Right.
And then, but the course talks. This course of love talks about there are things that you don't need to, once you know what you know,
Yeah.
and you need to do it. You can even say it. You need to put it in practice. You know, people say, well, Earth is a schoolhouse. Yes. And we're all in school. Yes. But there comes a time when school is out,
Yeah.
and you've got to take what you learn,
That's
and now
right.
you got to start living it. It's like
That's
people who
right.
say, oh, I'm a seeker. I'm a seeker. And it's okay to seek, but you got to find something. You don't
Right.
get points just for looking. You want to
Right.
find something. And so I say all that to say that you weren't coming across like you've got it all together and you
Thank
know
you.
everything. But B, you are saying, look, I've worked, and these are some truths that I've come to know
Mm-hmm.
that are eternal, and I'm sharing them.
Yes. That's
And it's
exactly
okay
right.
to say that. And whoever says, well, who you think you are, then that's fine. Then turn it off or go.
Yeah.
But there are some things you know.
Yes.
I know that if I put the work in, and I know that I am connected to all that is, and I need to live that way. And when I do live that way, even if it's for a brief moment, my life becomes easier.
Mm-hmm.
I live from a less fearful place. Now that's what I have learned. Now if
Yes.
that's too much for you, then but that's what, not that I know it's true,
Right.
and I don't mind saying it.
Agreed.
And so that's what I mean to say. There's
Yeah.
some things and you have to say it. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said we were talking about something. They said, I don't know why I'm here, and so we were talking about that. And I said, he said, well, that you mean that's Michael's opinion? I said, no,
Mm.
that's not Michael's opinion. That's the eternal truth.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't want to hear it because it was starting to
No.
hit a little too close to home. I said, no, no, that's just not my opinion. No,
That's it. It's
and
amazing
you
how
need to,
those things
you
they
know,
need to
start
hear.
looking at
That's
it.
what rings the loudest bells, right? That's what resonates the worst, and
Mhm.
people have the biggest reaction to when they hear that thing. That
Well, they get
man,
defensive.
they so defensive, And I'm like, man, look at like, listen. All I did was say this to you, and look at you. You know what I mean? Like you're ready to. You've thrown up your
And you're
hands, and
asking me,
you
and
know,
then when I tell you,
yeah,
well, but that's why, again, I'm in my Bible thing today. Jesus said, "Don't cast pearls before swine, because
hmm
they will turn on you. They'll eat the thing and then turn on you." So you
yeah,
have to, but you also have to be aware of who you have to meet people at their map of the world. There would
yeah,
probably, I'm sure things that I wasn't ready to hear, and people more evolved than me would say, "Okay, I threw that out there. Michael's not ready to hear that yet." But the same thing with us. If you get that kind of resistance, then you just kind of walk it back.
yeah.
Okay, that's
That's
just
right.
what I was doing. I don't
Sometimes
have
you
to
got
be
to hear
right.
something 101 times because the first 100 you were listening but you didn't hear it, and then when you hear it you're like,
Sometimes you got to hear it
oh,
101 lifetimes.
that's right. That's right. Oh man. So Michael, I want you to tell me. I was reading this incredible story and you mentioned it earlier, and I think it's worth rehashing for our listeners. You had this incredible healing experience, and I've heard and experienced, and this is more common than people think. And it's not that you were
Hmm.
looking for it. I'm, and I don't want to give people the wrong impression, like that they need to seek this out. But it does happen. It does happen, and it
It
comes from, I
does.
think,
There are books written on
people who are doing the work. But tell everyone about this remarkable healing you had and how it went down.
it. Okay, and I'll give you a little backstory, and I'll be
Okay.
succinct. I know we're running out of time. Um, 2013, my life was like a country western or blues song. My dad had died. My dad had died. I was getting fired from my job as a
Mm.
chaplain, and I was getting divorced. Whew. So, oh, anyway, the backstory is this. Let me get to it. I have a lot of friends who served in Vietnam. I did not serve in Vietnam. When I got out of high school in '75, the war was ending in April. So when I was in New York, I was part of this theater company called VETCO, Vietnam Veterans Theater Ensemble Company. Did some really powerful work with them. So I met a lot of vets, and so some of them would never talk about what happened. Some of them almost talked too much, but they kind of took me under their wing, and I had a lot of respect and questions about that war, and so I started really studying it, like I'm an amateur scholar on Vietnam. On on July 4th, 2013, I had a healing from a blonde, blue eyed person that I saw as an extraterrestrial. Um, my my wife at the time, and my daughter, but my wife is into fireworks big time, and I'm not. And we would go to the fireworks here, and it would take you at a place called Lake Julian, but it was such a drag. You had to get there at 7 o'clock. There's a point to all this. And the fireworks didn't start till 9:30. And you're sitting so close to people in this little park, and the mosquitoes are getting you, and you had to find parking, and it was so bad. But I did it to be a good dad and to be a good husband.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But the gods smiled on me, because July 4th, 2013, in Asheville, North Carolina, there was so many thunderstorms in the area that they had to cancel it. And I was so happy. And so but it sounded like artillery, man. This thunder, it was a woof. And so it made me think of my buddies who were saying sometimes you sleep in your foxhole, maybe you get 2, 3 hours sleep. Sometimes it's ingoing and outgoing or mortars or whatever. And it was, I was like, I don't know if I could have handled that, man. I think I'd have done something really crazy. So we would talk about it. And so that night it was 10 minutes to 9:50. And I had that feeling that somebody was in the room with me. And I turned around and there was a brother who was so tall, his head almost hit the ceiling in my apartment, and he was so thick you could see his muscles through this robe.
Wow.
And it was like an old timey robe, brother. It was like not a hoodie, but they called it a cowl. And he had a rope belt, and he had like a page boy kind of haircut, real pasty white looking brother with big blue eyes. And I was like, holy. And he put his hand out. Oh, I had a blood clot. Let's get to it. I had
Yeah.
a blood clot. My right leg was as large as LeBron James, and I'm a pretty skinny. I'm thin, put it like that. I'm a swimmer.
Right.
And my leg was blown up from my right ankle up to the groin area. They were
Wow.
giving me Coumadin. I was injecting myself with the Nexaparin to shrink this clot. I remember going to the doctor. The doctor said, "Did you come here by yourself?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you drive?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You need to go down to this place to get an echocardiogram, and you need to get there." He said, "Because of this burst." I said, "It's going to ruin my day." He said, "Very much so."
Yeah.
So I had this blood clot, and the guy stuck his hand out, and out of it, and by this time I had sat up on the bed. My heart was going to come through my chest,
Right.
and an apple green light hit me in my stomach, and I didn't feel it, but I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then he dissolved. He dissolved like his molecules just dispersed. So I I looked down at my leg, and it was normal. It was the normal size. I
Wow.
called, I don't know, you probably know. You know Preston Dennett?
Oh,
Do you know
yeah.
Preston?
It
Okay, I
sounds
called
super
Preston
cool.
because
Yeah.
Preston has 2 books out on UFO healings. He put me in the second one. But Preston, right then, now he lives over here on the East Coast, but he was living in LA. And
Yeah.
so it was 10 minutes to 7 there. He was probably out doing whatever he was doing.
Right.
And so I, I, I didn't have the presence of mind to take a picture, but when I went, I called my ex and my daughter at the time. And when they saw it, because I went over there the next day, they both did this at the same time. They gasped. They said that your leg is healed. They healed my leg. Now
Wow.
the thing was, and this is July 4th, 2013. I had to go to the doctor
Yeah.
and explain, and they were not having it. They grilled me. I said, I don't know. They said, no, no, no. They said, you were
What
here
kind of
10
black
days
magic
ago
were
and your
you
leg was
doing?
right. And I said, no, no, come on. And then finally, I said this. I said, aren't you happy for me? I don't know. You don't know what happened. I know
Yeah.
you're people of science. I believe in science. I'm a minister, but I believe me. And I put them on the defensive because it was getting to me, and I couldn't tell them what
Man.
really happened. They would have locked me up.
No.
And finally they just said, "Of course, Mr. Carter. Of course,
Yeah.
we're happy. We just want to know how did this happen so quickly?" Because I said, "Well, maybe the medicine worked." They said, "No,
Yeah.
you were just here 10 days ago. It takes so
Yeah.
so because they stick your finger and they let it go, and they took me off of the Coumadin
Yeah.
because they wanted me to be on it for life."
Right.
And I said, "No, I'm not
No,
taking
they
this for
get
life. No,
very
no."
testy when you show up healed.
Yeah,
I've seen
yes,
it. I've talked to
they were
people.
not having it.
they're like, what did you do? I'm like, aren't you happy for me? They're like, what did you do? Yeah.
Yeah, I just said, oh, you got to be happy because I don't
Yeah.
know what happened and you don't know what happened, but I'm better. You want
Yeah.
me to be better, and I'm better, and let's
Right.
be happy for me.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
that's
beautiful.
the story.
That's beautiful.
That's the
It's
story. The rain came, and I got to tell you, I'm looking back. This brother wasn't even wet.
right.
Okay, he wasn't even
No, he
wet.
wasn't out in the
And I went
rain.
over to the space where he was standing, and my floor wasn't wet. It's just high strangeness.
Yeah.
All of these contacts are high strangeness.
Yes.
They're high strangeness.
That's
They can come
amazing.
to you in your dream.
Yeah.
You know, I had dreams,
I've
and they
spoken
would
to
come,
people who have come in, and they're
and
hesitant to talk
everything's the
about it.
same.
Yeah.
A friend of mine said to me, he said, Michael, that wasn't a dream. Because he said in a dream, he said, you said they were in your bedroom. I said, yeah.
Right.
He said, you said they were in the living room one time. I said, yeah. He said, tell me about that. I said, yeah, they were. He said, was everything in place
Yeah.
in your dream like it was in real time? Were those pictures there
Right.
in your dream? Was the chair there? I said, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. He said, then that's not a
That
dream.
wasn't a dream. No, yeah.
They know how to manipulate it.
Of
That's not a
course.
dream. Yeah, yeah. If everything is the exact same way in real time as they are in your dream,
Right.
that's not a dream.
No.
I said, oh,
When's it?
oh,
When I can't. You
okay.
can't. I can't recall a single quote dream that I've ever had where I'm sitting in a place that is exactly like the place in real life, and not one. Not one.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that
yeah.
right there
I
should be
couldn't
a
either, but I
sign.
was just, the mind doesn't want to
That's
accept
right. That's it. That's what it is. The
that,
mind
that
is
this
like,
person just walked through my wall, or this person is shooting me, or
yeah,
I can't move. The mind, you don't want to accept that because it goes
right.
against old time physics. That's not
Yes.
supposed to happen.
Yes. That's
But
exactly
that's
right.
why I
And
got
so
regressed when it started happening. I knew I wasn't crazy.
that's right. And I've been to meditation retreats. I've been
Hmm.
in meditation ceremonies, different plant ceremonies, and you can feel, and some people can even see. I've never seen, but I can sense.
Yes.
I guess, there's different kinds of clairvoyance, and I think that we all have,
Yeah, it's
a lot of
clairaudience, there's clairsentience, there's
yeah.
clairvoyance. Yeah, yeah,
See,
yeah. It's different
I
ways to
can
be psychic. So you feel
yes,
it, you sense it.
I can
Some
sense, I
people
can
see
feel
it,
it in my body,
some people
right?
smell it.
Some
Yeah.
people can see it, and it's funny because when you get a bunch of people in a room together, the clairsentience can look to the clairvoyance and the to confirm what they sent, and so you kind of have
Yeah.
a bit of
Yeah.
validation.
Yeah. So
But
you don't have to
these
compete with
beings,
each other.
that's
We're all
right.
here.
No, and
Yeah.
everybody is kind of, so all of a sudden the sensitives become alert to something in the room, and and what we later learn is that these entities, these beings, sometimes they're like 20 feet tall, sometimes they're 10 feet tall, sometimes they're the perception of them is, they're not in physical proportion, you know what I mean? It's like they're
Mhm.
there but they're not there, and that's
And
because
sometimes they don't even have bodies.
that's
Sometimes
right.
they're just pure energy. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
oftentimes there's these tremendous healings reported. Like one woman
Yeah.
was in a trance, and when she came to, she doesn't. She was on the floor, and so it looked like she was like a fish out of water. She was like wiggling around and doing all these crazy things and making all these noises and talking, but we couldn't really understand what she was saying. But what she described was these two, like, so she had like this major hip issue, and she described the funniest conversation that these two beings were having as they were trying to fix her hip, and
Her
they were,
hip.
and one had her leg, the other one had her leg, and they were saying, one was saying, no, trust, this is how we're going to do it, and she was like, do you two know, she was like thinking, do you guys know what you're doing? She was scared, but she could sense that, the whole room was geared towards the healing, and then all of a sudden these
Yes.
beings, you know so it's just amazing what people begin to perceive. And look, what she described may or may not be exactly what was there, but that's what her mind was able to perceive of the physical manifestation of these beings. The rest of us, the people that were around her, didn't see anything, but we saw her
Right.
moving. We saw her legs going, doing these crazy things as these beings
Yeah.
healed her, you know, and
Yes.
so there's a lot of benevolence in the universe. It's the only reason why I wanted you to
You
share that
better believe
story,
it.
so that people
Yes.
realize
No,
that,
no, it's a fantastic story.
you know, it's
Fantastic
an
story.
amazing universe. The
It is. And
fear is,
Einstein said,
yeah,
well, the fear is what, but Einstein
it's
said,
a, yeah. Go ahead.
no, he was just saying that the most important question we can ever ask ourselves is if we believe the universe is a friendly place, because the answer to that question will be the way you live your life. And if you think it is uh, a valley of tears, if you
Yeah,
think that everybody's out to get you, then that's what you're going to manifest. But if you say it's
absolutely.
a friendly universe,
That you're going to
that's
experience
what you're
that.
going to manifest.
This, I mean, we should be teaching this at every level of education, because that's the way we end up with the world we want to live in, right? And
Yes.
it's a such a piece of wisdom you just shared with everyone, and I love that, because it's so true. People don't, if you just stop and think about it, how much what you understand and believe about this world affects what you experience. I
That's
mean,
right.
in every moment of every day, it is
It's
profound.
quantum
It is,
theory. It's quantum
it,
theory.
it's it, and that's
That's it.
we got to shift into that, you know, as a collective,
Yes.
you know. But my God, this has been awesome, Michael. It's so cool to have you on. It's
It's a
amazing
pleasure,
to
brother.
talk to
I
you.
call me anytime. We can talk anytime.
Appreciate it, man. We'll have to get. Well, let's see how Marianne does. Maybe we'll come back on. We'll talk a little bit about how she's doing,
Yeah,
and
let's do that. Yeah, I don't mind, call me, man, if I'll
I
make the
will.
time,
I
because
will,
this
brother.
is it's important. It's
Yeah,
important. And I thank you for
you're
having
welcome.
me on.
You're very welcome, brother.
So let me know when it airs. Send me a
I will.
link.
I
I want to
promise.
send it to you
I'll
too.
be in touch with you.
And yes, and
We'll
we'll send it out and more people will watch.
absolutely. We'll get it. We'll put it up everywhere we can, and I'll be in touch with you for the premiere. And you know, I'll get a hold of you. We'll see, because we'll probably make some clips and we can share it on our social media and all that. And this
Sure, brother.
conversation has been awesome. We'll have to do it again
Yes.
sometime. And you
I,
know,
I just really just let me know. I love
we'll
I
do.
love it.
We'll do, brother. For
I wish
everyone,
many blessings to you and your family, brother.
thank you. Same to you and yours. I appreciate that, Michael. And for everyone who stayed with us, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't
Yes,
forget to
thank you for taking the
subscribe.
time.
As always, question the answers, my friends, and thank you
Yes.
for sticking with us. All right,
And
Michael.
live
We'll talk
long
soon,
and
brother.
prosper. Live long and
That's
prosper.
right. Thanks, brother. Take care.